Greetings and salutations. Welcome to this episode of Playwright Spotlight. Before we begin, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the channel. If you're not aware, Play Noir is coming back. An evening of film noir style one-act plays written by playwrights like you from around the world. If you've already got a film noir style one-act play under your belt, feel free to submit that to info@punkmonkeyproductions.com. If you need guidelines and information, feel free to visit the website www.punkmonkeyproductions.com. If you want more insight as to what Play Noir is all about, pick up a copy of Play Noir Anthology, 41 film noir style one-act plays written by playwrights like you, as I mentioned, from around the world. And what you're thinking, we have submissions from 6 out of 7 continents. We just got a submission from West Asia, which fulfills that 6th continent. And I know you're thinking that Antarctica is the last one. It is not. Believe it or not, in 2017 or 2018, we had a submission from a play that was co-written by someone who was stationed in Antarctica. So the only continent we're waiting for is Africa. So if you happen to be in Africa and you're listening to our podcast, I expect a submission from you so we can have a worldwide film noir submission-based play festival. My guest today has worked with Broadway's top producers to create brand campaigns for well over 100 productions, including 17 award-winning best plays, best musicals, and best revivals. He has recently turned to playwriting plays of his own. Since the fall of 2022, he has plays produced from the coast of California to Connecticut, among them a Best in Festival winner at Wilmington Drama League and the winning play from Delaware at ESTAFest at 2023. He has had work published in multiple anthologies, including the excerpt from his play Uphill, which was published in the Best Men's Stage Plays 2023 by Smith Kraus. His audio drama, West PalmReaders, appeared internationally on the Apple Podcast charts in 49 countries last summer, including multiple number ones in drama and 13 top 10s in drama, including the USA. He has worked with professional and amateur theater companies alike, such as Legacy Theater in Connecticut, the Rhode Theater Company in North Hollywood, which we're based in, and Rhode Island Stage Ensemble. Other plays include 40 Years Kings, first produced in Delaware last February, and a new audio drama, Happ's Last Tape, to be produced and debut this October. Ladies and gentlemen, oh my God, as most bios happen to be, this was a mouthful. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm going to watch this. Scott Cameron. Cameron Scott.
For a playwright no one's ever heard of.
Touche.
That was quite a lengthy introduction.
I'm gonna disagree that you might say that no one's ever heard of, but yeah, I'm gonna it's coming. Are you going to the place that I might write under a pen name? Is that where you're going, James? I write under a pen name. I have less than you. I have one act.
We're fighting for the bottom. Is that
I have one act that's in this book. That's it. You've got more than me. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about your beginnings, because you got into this not too long ago. But let's talk about your evolution and what got you into this, because you've been on Broadway, off Broadway.
Well, I haven't had any work produced on Broadway.
But you've been in the industry. That's my point. So, let's talk about where you were in that regard, your marketing aspects, and then where you decided to pull the trigger and say, I'm going to start writing.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. One thing I will say, because I just and I wish I had prepared better for this, so I apologize.
There's no preparation.
It will be evident. It will be evident to everyone listening that there's no.
You've listened to multiple episodes. You know that there's no preparation for this.
They're great, though, James. That's why they're great. They're natural.
I appreciate it, but like
it allows me to flub and to probably impart misinformation unintentionally. But I'll do my best to speak clearly and not muddle my memories.
Muddle away.
It's funny because you mentioned North Hollywood, which I love. I've had, like I said, I've had some great. It's funny. I think I've had more stuff done on the West Coast in California than I have had where I'm situated, which is the New York DMA.
Why do you think that is?
I don't because if 10 million monkeys are at a typewriter, one of them produces Hamlet. I just think it's just how it worked out. I mean, I'll get to that in a sec, I guess.
Sure. Yeah.
I was I did a quick talk back with an audience, albeit a modestly sized audience, at the Rhode Theater Company that had attended a reading of 2 of my one acts. And at the end of that, I said, these are the first 2 plays I wrote, like I've ever written. And so the notion that they were written a long time ago was like, no, I just wrote them. And a woman in the audience said, well, I call bullshit. And, meaning like, you've obviously done this before, you're behaving as if you're.
Well, good for you.
I guess, right. It's a compliment, and I'm not sharing it for that reason, but I'm sort of sharing it for it's never too late to start doing something. I've been exposed to theater in one form or another. I moved around quite a bit as a kid, but was able to spend like half of middle school, which up here in the Northeast is like 7th and 8th grade, spend half of middle school and my entirety of high school in one place, which was great. I lived in a couple different places in that area, but it was in one school district. And, so I was near New York, and my father is divorced from my mother. He lived in Greenwich Village, and, access to the theater, which not everybody listening on your podcast is going to have access to. I could see theater, whenever I wanted to.
Sure.
And not that as a kid in 7th grade, I did. My mother would, this is like horrible. It's like becoming a confessional podcast, which I was, but now I can't let my mom listen to this, I'll have to hide this from her. But she would, a good friend of mine in middle school became co-captain of our football team. So kind of like
your mom.
No, good friend of mine.
Okay, sorry.
I thought I was clear. Perhaps I wasn't. Thank you for the
I'm sorry. Just it clicked. I'm like, or just hit.
My mom is a very.
I want to see your mom like tackling like 8th graders. I'm sorry.
No, she doesn't have the body type for it. She wouldn't last much. She wouldn't be able to do it. But I had she would take me and my co-captain of our football team friend and bring us and like basically force us to see like one Broadway show a year. And so, and I mean, I'm just saying that because, when you're a kid, you'd rather like, do anything and, but and not that theater was forced on me, but, theater was just, it wasn't an indulgence. It wasn't like, it's just something you should do. You should just consume it, like you would a good book or a poem or, any exposure to literature. I should also say that my mom was not a football player, but she was an English teacher. So anyway, I'm just saying all of that just to say that my exposure to theater was relatively immediate. And then, and now here I am, at 57 years of life. And it's been basically a considerable part of my life from like age 19, 20 forward. I'm just trying to think like, just this past 30 days, I've probably seen 7 or 8 or 9 shows, probably more actually.
So I want to get into your off Broadway and Broadway stuff, but at the same time, I want to and maybe we start in the beginning, a very good place to start via Julie Andrews, but to get to the place where all of a sudden you decided to start writing.
Yeah. Well,
so maybe we need to go to that evolution. Maybe I don't want to get. Maybe we don't get into that yet.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just offering it out there. Just
100%.
It wasn't like a finger snap. I'm like, oh, I'm going to write something. You know what I mean? Like, when I was I mean, I'm just like bringing this podcast in the direction I want it to go, huh? Because here we go. When I was 19, when I was in college at NYU, I wrote and sold a piece of short fiction to a widely distributed, what would you call it, a newspaper of sorts on the Jersey Shore. And so the idea of me writing things, even as a late teenager, wasn't completely like, it just seemed like people write, it's a thing. Like it wasn't. Yeah. So, I mean, I already thought, I didn't think of myself as a writer, but I thought that was something people did.
But at the same time,
my grandmother was also an English teacher. So I'm just saying that the note, like books, books, movies, films, art, literature, it was not foreign to our household. No,
100%. But I want to unpack this because you're saying I don't think of myself as a writer, and there's this mentality, and that's why I really want to delve into this, because there's this mentality, and we haven't gotten into this in any of the episodes that I've recorded. There's this mentality. It's like, oh, well, what have you done? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, you're a writer. Where can I find your stuff? Can I buy something at Barnes and Noble? Can I buy something at Playwright? Oh, do you have something under Samuel French?
Mm-hmm.
No, I think that doesn't mean I'm not a writer.
That's someone else's definition. I mean,
that's why I want to touch base on that, because again, as you and I talked about yesterday, in regards to what's that definition?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you the kind of writer that I think I am, which may not be the traditional definition of one. So when I was as a kid, and then I continued to do it until a couple of years in my early 20s, I would write, short fiction, short stories,
sure.
And in that situation with writing, I mean, it is all on you, right? Like whether that thing is good or bad or makes sense or elicits an emotion is entirely upon the words on the page.
Sure.
And you can't say, oh, well, it was an off night, the audience wasn't laughing, or, oh man, I wish that the set hadn't froze because it's so much better when, or blah, blah, or the understudy went on tonight and great woman, but she's just doesn't have it like the other one. You got to come back tomorrow. Well, there's no coming back tomorrow. It's there. It's either good or it isn't. So that I can't even remember the last time I tried to even write prose, but so I'm getting there. And James, I know you're probably worried this podcast can be 5 hours with the way I'm answering these questions. But
if it is,
but playwriting to me, when you write a play script, when you write a script for the theater, you're writing an outline for a live experience on the stage that will be shared by hopefully more people in the seats than are on the stage. But it's a group, it's a group art. It is something that involves parts of what move you in the theater are done by backstage scenic artists, and people that lighting cues can make a difference. I walked into Just in Time with my wife maybe a month ago, which is a Bobby Darin inspired piece that Jonathan Groff is in and is nominated for Best Actor. But anyway, you walk in there, and the minute you walk in there, you're just like, oh my gosh, I feel transported, and it has everything to do with the set designer. So all I'm saying is when, and is that in the script? No, the book writer, I mean, it's a musical. So the book writer did not outline how people are going to feel when they walk in. That had nothing to do with that person,
Sure.
So I just think as a playwright, and I do hesitate to call myself even that, but as a playwright, you are just a part, maybe you're the germ, the inspiration, the start of something. But you are by no means the beginning and the end. And I think that even holds true in plays, not just music.
Sure. Well, that's what I want to get into as well, because, when we talked yesterday, I asked you where, your work and, are you on New Play Exchange? And you can't find me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're all over the place. Mm-hmm. You're Connecticut, you're North Hollywood. So
Delaware.
Yeah, exactly. So let's, yeah, exactly. So let's, I mean, the audio plays. And so you've got a wide spectrum, excuse me, of different things. You're doing audio plays, which is, which we've covered in the podcast, and audio plays compared to what, stage plays, there's a wide plethora of content in that regard, and they're all approached a different way. And I'm interested to hear your approach to the difference.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm like, and what came first and what came later, and how did it evolve?
Yeah.
So
one thing, having, like I said, having worked in the industry since I've, graduated NYU, I've seen a lot of stuff, and, a lot of really good stuff. I mean, really, really good stuff.
What was what did you study?
English, basically. I just,
okay. Copy. All right. Understood.
But but in studying English, that's sort of one of those, like,
sure.
What do you do with that degree?
I did
the truth. I did concentrate on dramatic literature.
Okay. Great.
Which also, I almost wonder if it is literature, because some of the best play scripts, were never intended and never should be read. You know what I'm saying? So, like, literature is,
Well, what do you mean? How do you mean?
I mean, a play script is in my view, a play, and some of them are this, inarguably. But in my view, in general, a play script is a suggestion for a live experience on stage. I think, and actually, I mean, I know playwrights. I know playwrights who've had stuff have stuff on Broadway right now, tonight. I talked to one of them. This is where I start masking my details. I talked to one of them, maybe, I don't know, 6 months ago, and he was describing rewriting a show that was already set and established because of an actor's strengths and the way that an actor was really succeeding in the evening, which required the evening to change. And, and to me, it's just like, well, some people think, and it can be true too. Like, I mean, the Arthur Miller estate's not going to allow you to change Mr. Miller's play and say whatever you want, like, attention isn't necessary. I mean, that's not happening. Right. But, when you're making something for an audience, you want it to be the best that you possibly can. So this playwright could have kept the script exactly as it was, and it would have been a lesser evening because the man performing it was better at a different aspect of the production. And so you needed and were required to reshape the direction of the evening. Does that make sense?
So, yeah, but because this is fascinating. So are you saying that hypothetically, and maybe I'm over analyzing this. Are you saying that hypothetically, if a playwright was still alive and something evolved from a particular actor or performance, it necessitates rearranging and changing and rewriting the play?
I mean, necessitates is, that's, we could argue about that word.
I mean, not necessarily. Maybe that's the other word. I mean, it sounds like it's like it's definitional.
I mean, to me, a play is a living thing, right? Like, otherwise it's a movie. I mean, there's got to be some living aspect to it. I mean, I guess you could do mechanicalized stuff on stage and it would be a play of sorts. But mostly the definition of a play is human beings telling a story to other human beings in one room, on one night, in one location. And you want that experience to be its absolute best. And, there's no ideal actor performing it that night. There is the actor that you have doing it that night.
But does that necessitate the rewriting of it, or is it just the interpretation?
I mean, this was
the interpretation.
Yeah, I mean, the example I'm citing was of a new work.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, sure.
So there was,
definitely. I guess in that regard, yeah.
Okay.
So
it's a new work, and it's like, hey, we did this out of town, and it was slightly different, and we can make this better by making the following changes. And that's all you want to do is just put on the best possible show that you can. So
do you have you had that experience yourself?
I've had
I don't mean this as an insult by any means, as a new playwright.
Yeah,
because I don't.
Like I said, I definitely describe myself as new, not new as a person, obviously.
Sure, of course,
but hardly new as a person, but new to doing it. Sure. Okay. I've had the good fortune that I wrote actually at the suggestion of a really good friend of mine, who I met in high school in the New York area. He said, you should write a play about this subject, And I was like I usually do. I'm like, yeah, okay, bad idea, And then I dwelled on it for a little bit, and I'm like, I think he's right. And I think I'm only hearing this. I'm not seeing it, and I think it's going to play better if you're only hearing it. And so I came up with this play called That Day Is Coming, Every Day Is Coming. And that title only came to me because during the course of the play, it was a line that was uttered. And I'm like, oh, that works as, I don't know. I think I called it some horrible title prior to that. We were working titles. And a lot of times I begin and I don't have a title as I start. But when I did that, I was like, okay, great. This is an audio work. I'm happy with it. Let me see if someone wants to do it. And where I'm going is I've had the good fortune that not only was it done, and I think really, really well, in the we did that one first in 2023. And as you said in your long intro, so thank you for that. I only started.
Well, you got the experience, huh?
I only started doing this in the fall of 22. So in 23, when we did That Day Is Coming, Every Day Is Coming as an audio work, the following January in 24, it was one of the pieces that was read at the Rhode Theater Company, and that was the first time that I actually saw people doing the play. Now it was, music stands. It wasn't an attempt to do any kind of staging, because I had the work really just heard anyway, and it wasn't full of sound effects. It was basically just the human voice. But when I saw it with the two guys reading it, I was just like, I wonder if this could be done as a play.
Was it intended to be an audio play? Is that what you sat down to write?
When I wrote it, I said, actually, I think I wrote in the summary, like, this is a work for audio, like, end of story, as if like I can make a definitive declaration like that. But I wrote it just to be heard, only to be heard. But then, it was like, hey, like, let's do a reading of your stuff at the Rhode. Sure. And what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, let's do that one. And let's do this one, And when I saw that audio play being read by live human beings, it just suddenly opened up other thoughts and notions to me. And I said, wow, this might be able to be okay, on a stage. Well, then flash forward about another 6 months. There was an amateur company in Rhode Island that said, hey, I like this because it's now available as a podcast, which is, as a playwright, it's not a bad tool for you to have a definitive recorded example, whether video or audio, of your work. It just helps future productions happen. And so I do recommend that you get videos and audio tapes if you can. Tapes dates me, but you know what I mean? Sure. Audio files. But anyway, so a company in Rhode Island said, hey, I think I can do this. And I want to do this play with two women. And this play is supposed to be about what older men don't say to each other. So that it's like all about subtext. It's all about men's inability to communicate with each other, but deeply love and appreciate each other as brothers, Sure. And she's like, I want to do this with women. And immediately as a playwright, you're like, what? What? That's not even the point of the play, But
sure.
I'm trying to define what I am as a writer. But then you stop and you think, and you're like, well, first I thought it had to be audio, and then I learned it doesn't. I don't think. And then I initially thought this has to be two men, and they have to be older. And this woman who's smart and talented is telling me that this is a play that two women can do. And, then I go like, okay, like, yeah, you're probably right. Like, what do I know? I don't know. I just wrote this start of something. And if you have a better idea, let's see what you want to do with it, And to me, so like 20 minutes later, 30 minutes later, I'm now answering your question. That to me is the kind of, in quotes, writer I am, is like, hey, I have an idea for something that might be cool. And it's like, hey, I know this guy or gal who's amazing and could read these lines really well and maybe put another twist on it, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I promise this is it. I'm coming to the end.
You're good. You're fine.
This anecdote is ending. So the play is kind of like, if you hear it, James, if you later Google it and find it and listen, you'll be like, this doesn't sound like Beckett at all. And it doesn't. But I just want to describe it as like two characters in a somewhat bleak situation, where the sound of the words matter. That seems kind of like bragging, but whatever. But the sound of the words matter, and everything's kind of carefully orchestrated. And so then this woman did it, and she said, okay, Beckett, but how how about they're the two clowns from Waiting for Godot?
I knew it.
How about it's funny?
Yeah. Okay.
No, but how about it's funny? How about it's Beckett, but it's funny, and Beckett is also funny, right? And it's like, what are you talking about? This isn't a comedy, you know? And it's like, it's, you know, and I thought it might have some like stage laughs in it, meaning like you're just knowing chuckles of, oh, I've been in that situation, ha ha ha. But like, you know, no Henny Youngman one-liners. And she did it, and I went with my friend who suggested that I write this play to begin with, and he went with me. He drove up there with me as, you know, as my car companion, and it was like hilarious and appropriate and great. And it turned out, because it's theater, and because the other woman who was supposed to do it became unable to do it, it was done by an incredibly talented guy who was probably about 10 years too young for the role. But it became a play between slightly younger people. And again, it's about aging, this play. It's about being older. It's about coming to an end of sorts. But they're younger. It's a man and a woman, and they're making the audience laugh like every 3 minutes. And it was great. And so to me, that's me as a writer. Okay. So like I didn't, as I was, 19 years old, published my first story. That is what it is. You read it. There's really no other way to interpret it. There's adjectives there. It's all very clear. But then I wrote this script, and I've heard it 3 different ways in the span of, a year and a half. And that's what I love about it.
How much of that is direction versus playwriting? Nothing changed from the writing, I'm assuming.
Well, but there was one sentence, one line of dialogue I'd written that I think, let's say it had 4 words, and they got rid of one of the words, and it became hilarious and incredibly appropriate. And okay. I wasn't in so the rehearsal process, this is, they're, the theater's like 2.5 hours away from my house or something. Sure. Like ungodly. And she's like, and the artistic director of the theater said, you don't have to be here for rehearsals. And I said, great. And actually, it's funny. Okay, now I am going to take an hour and a half to answer one question.
Feel free.
But when I first wrote it, when it was first done as an audio piece, the director who I was paired up with to do it, and I got to be careful how I say this, because I have tons of respect for him. He's really talented. He said, I'm not so sure about this piece. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, who do you think is listening to this? And what do you think they're getting out of it? And I said, director, and I was actually, I'm at my home today. I'm looking out the window. It was about 12:30 at night, and he was in LA. So it's like 9:30 his time. But for me, it's 12:30. I'm on the street coming home from having seen a play in New York, and having this conversation with him. And I said, well, in the beginning of this play, it's like music. I want you to hear it. I want you to hear that, just to be clear, 2 men are playing cards, and and they're gambling over the card game. And it's not poker. It's a game called cribbage or crib. Sure. It's also another game that, that a wager is nice to do to add to the fun, a highly strategic game anyway. But it has like a very unfamiliar sound to it, which I think is like interesting. So I told him, I said, look, I just want it to sound, it's about the sounds. It's just not about what's happening. You don't have to know what's happening in the game. It doesn't matter. It's, and he said, that's like a horrible idea, And he said, look, I have my final rehearsal tomorrow and that's it. We're done. This is it was a paid production. He was paid, but you don't have limitless money. You don't have limitless time, right? Like the money only goes so far. So he's like, I have one rehearsal. It's happening tomorrow. And I'm not sure I understand how to do this for you, And I said, okay. So I thought, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to write him. I'm going to, in red, under each line of the play, tell him what it means and what is happening, and literally do a subtext script and a translation. And while in my work is my professional work is not playwriting, which is I've made $1.18 writing plays. My professional work is very demanding, and I don't have a lot of time, and I had no time to send him something basically. So on the train, I wrote it, on the way to work. I wrote exactly like, here's what I'm thinking. Here's what every line means. And I sent it to him, and it's wonderful. I mean, you can search the recording. Alan Wasserman's in it. It's fantastic. It's a different interpretation than what I just described to you, but it's absolutely fantastic. And they basically just followed what I called, and I don't know if this is a thing in playwriting or not, but I called it a subtext script. And it was a companion piece to the actual script. Hey, James, I just want to say one thing. None of this did I think we would be talking about.
Well, that's why, again, like you and I have had
Sure?
these conversations, and there's nothing.
Do you want to reconsider the editing notion on your podcast?
We're not editing anything because again,
right.
something's gonna click with our listeners, because I'm fascinated and frustrated at the same time. You're telling me about a play that starts off with a card game.
Yes.
I don't want to hear a card game.
Yeah, well, hey, look.
I want to watch a card game. I want to see it. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
That's again, this is the basics of freaking playwriting.
Well,
don't tell.
Well,
I don't want to, so and so, James and Cameron are playing cards, and you hear the shuffling. I don't want to. I want to see it. So that's what I want to know. I want to know about this. Go ahead.
I would suggest you withhold judgment and listen to it. And it might not be for you. You know what I mean? And that's a fascinating subject that we should talk about, is when you're writing.
That's what I want to know. I want to know the difference. I want to know where your mentality was from writing an audio play. I want to know the difference, the audio version and the stage version, and the differences of thereof.
Yeah. Well, Yeah.
What did you learn from that?
Well, one thing I want to say is, like, you can't do that in a play, right? That's kind of, and I'm making my own judgment of you when I say that. So you said to me, you can't do that in a play. Like, really? Because
I would never say you can't do that in a play.
Well, yeah, that's true. You're right. You said I don't want to see
I don't want to see it. I wouldn't
hear
do that. Yeah. So,
but like if I'm not doing something that, if I'm doing something that I've seen before, like, I don't know, I'm just like, that's boring. I'm getting toward the end of my life. I don't want to just do stuff that other people have done before. I want to, like, do something that A, I find interesting, and B, that I hope others will find interesting. The one thing I'll throw out there is the production was done at a playhouse that does, they've done, like, at this point, like 168 audio plays.
Sure.
And it is the second most downloaded play of their offerings. And
correct.
In the year in which we aired it, it was the most downloaded play that they had. So when you say, like, I don't want to hear it, someone did, like, someone, maybe they didn't know they wanted to, but it was an enjoyable experience, and they told a friend about it, and other people listened.
100%. So let me, I'll hit on 2 points on that. As somebody who's a huge fan of the classics, whether that's the radio dramas, if you want to go back to the
I love radio dramas,
the Philip Marlowe radio plays and stuff like that, I'm all about it. And for somebody who works with visually impaired, I'm all about that as well. Like, I'm the artistic director for which is organization that works with visually impaired. So I'm all about, like, we're getting ready to do a play where half the actors are blind. So I'm not saying that I don't appreciate it, but I'm also of the ilk of show don't tell.
Yeah, sure.
And I suppose
but in audio that's hard, but yeah.
I suppose that's my ilk. That's my default, not my default. That's my, whatever you want to call it, as far as yeah, no, I'm with you. You know what I mean? Like I'm all about. But so let me go back to that. So I think we've gotten through that as far as, like, that aspect, because again, I would never. But I want to know the difference from what. So did you stage it as well?
Well,
and I want to know if you did. I want to know what changed. I want to know.
So it's only had one stage production. However, James, I have good news for you. I hope you can hear. I hope you can hear the quotes around good news. There are some pretty big quotes there. The good news for you is it will be staged, this play that we're discussing, in January on Melrose Avenue in Los Angeles in January. And you and I are going to get together, and we're going to sit.
You heard it here
first. Theater.
I
think it's 41 seats. So hopefully, I'm not saying, like, so if it sells out, it's only 41 seats. But you and I are going to sit there, and we're going to watch it together, and we're going to talk about it again.
Then we might have to have a follow-up episode.
We might, which I can't imagine anyone has gotten this far into the podcast.
Well,
without dropping off, or that you will get another listen. But yes.
The funny thing is, you say that because Faye Wayaya. I'm going to botch her name. Faye Wayaya. She was a high school playwright, and she actually brought her play down to the Hollywood Fringe. I'm going to go see that tomorrow.
Oh, cool.
So I saw her original staging, and then we talked about the evolution of it the last episode. So yes, we might have to do this again. It'll be fun to reconvene and talk about things.
I'm challenging you to watch my play.
I'll be there. Absolutely.
All right.
And as a matter of fact, those who are listening, we will we'll have to make sure we do this prior. I don't know. I have to figure out a way to put the ticket link in the bio.
Well, you know what would be amazing is like I would like nothing more than for us to do another one and you say, Scott, it was actually dog shit. You know, like to me, that would be the podcast I would want to do.
I would love to do
more fun when you and I are arguing than when we're agreeing. Who wants to hear that?
I wouldn't call it arguing. I would love to do a pre-one because there's only a handful of playwrights that I've got to see their play prior to interviewing them. There's 3. And but we can do it post as well. I don't mind that. So
I'm teasing. We don't have to. You never have to see.
Oh no, I'll be there. No, trust me. We're gonna go fisticuffs.
Challenge. Okay.
We're gonna fisticuffs. All right. So let's.
I'll even buy your ticket. How about that?
I appreciate it. Unnecessary, but deeply appreciated. So we may have touched on it. A little bit. You come from a marketing aspect of off Broadway and
primarily Broadway, but
on Broadway
too. Yeah.
Right. I don't want to necessarily jump into that yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really interested in your rise into playwriting.
Oh, sure.
And you said 2022?
Yeah. Yep. So
wait, did the audio play come first?
It didn't.
Talk about the process. Talk about how it evolved and where you came from. And I mean this in all due respect. And there's a better way to phrase it. Your late start.
Yeah, sure.
Because again, like there's I guarantee you, there's people out there that are sitting on their hands and they're like, I always wanted to write a play. I always wanted to do this, and they just haven't done it.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm one of those. Everybody's one of those. No matter what it is, it could be playwriting. It could be race car driving. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah.
It's just but just to tell people that it's never too late. So let's get into that aspect and start some inspiration.
Absolutely, because it's funny. I have a couple friends who are just like, "Wow, man, you're doing a lot of stuff. Like, what inspired this? And you're doing so much." And I'm like, "Am I doing that much? I got, And some of it could be that a late start is beneficial in that I have a wildly different perspective on life than I did when I sold that first piece of short fiction to, a 6-figure distributed newspaper in New Jersey. It wasn't nothing. But when I sold that first story as a teenager, how I viewed the world is not even remotely how I view it now.
Time out real quick. Was that a story or was it a play?
No, it was short fiction. It's,
got it, copy. Enough said. Okay, carry on. Sorry.
So no. So, what I'm saying is, like what am I gonna? I can write pretty quickly because I have a lot to draw from. I have been an adult for a very long time, and for me to sit down and be like, what should I do next? Again, I it sounds like I'm bragging. I do these in like a train ride. You know what I mean? Like I literally just sit down. It's like, okay, I'll plot out, I'll map, I'll figure out what I want to do, and I just do it. The reason I answered the question that way, I guess, is you just do it. You know what I mean? Like if you think like waiting for everything to be perfect, and maybe that's something you do in prose, maybe. But in plays, that's never, I would suggest, the way to do it. Like, because plays are an imperfect and fabulous art form, and they're almost never identical, like in the way in which a snowflake isn't, right? Like every performance, something different happens, like lines are skipped. Believe me, lines are skipped. You might not know, seen a lot of plays, lines are skipped all the time. Sometimes big chunks.
100%.
Yeah. And well, of course, yeah, So, they're all different. They're not perfect. And that's what I love about drama, or the theater rather,
sure,
is it's not perfect. And that's what makes it so raw and exciting and just fabulous. So if you think you're going to be in this distilled, quiet, perfect space in which everything is going to go exactly as you've planned, you're probably not writing a play, because I think that play has yet to be performed.
Sure.
You know? So anyway, so I'm just, all that to say, just do it.
Yeah.
Just sit down and do it. And you know what? Maybe it's not good the first time. That's okay. You know, maybe it takes you 20 to do it. I think that, you know, the reason I sat down, so like so many others, you know, during COVID, actually one of the few things you could do during COVID was stand in a ski lift line 5 or 6 feet apart from someone else with a balaclava around your face and ski, you know, you could do that. You were allowed to do that. Ski hills were open. And I have a local hill that if you're, you know, pushing the speed limit, is probably like only an hour and 15 minutes away from me. And so it gave me time to snowboard, you know, which was great. And, you know, I was sitting on lifts by myself, which matters. You'll see in a second, but I was sitting on lifts by myself and just thinking about, you know, just alone with my thoughts on a ski lift. And just started thinking about all that stuff. And I go, man, this is like real Sisyphean, you know, like going up the hill, I'm going down the hill, I'm going up the hill, I'm going down the hill. And the whole Camus thing is that, you know, that Sisyphus perhaps isn't being tortured, but it's, you know, highly rewarding to live that kind of existence. But anyway, so I just started thinking about things in general. And I'm like, you know what, screw it. I'm going to go home and I'm going to write this down, you know? And that was the impetus. And I'm like, how many thousands of people were inspired in some way or another, hundreds of tens of thousands by COVID, by your whole world being completely thrown upside down. And that's what, you know, being held upside down and shaken, like I presumably was as a baby, but having that being done to me when I was 50, you know, that did it. So, I sat down and wrote a play.
So what made you sit down and do it? I don't know. So and the reason why I ask, not to interrupt.
Yeah, no.
And I don't know if you're familiar with him, and you may have heard it in episodes you've listened to, because I know you have.
Yeah.
Stephen Pressfield, who I desperately need to just have on. Stephen Pressfield wrote, his first book was, and apologies, guys, I know I brought this up zillions of times, so get over it. His first book was The War of Art.
Mm-hmm.
And The War of Art is basically resistance and how we as artists or writers, whatever you want to call it, we'll avoid it at all costs. We'll do dishes. We'll check email. We'll do everything we don't want to do except write. So, you know, and then he did do the work, and nobody wants to read your shit in one other book. So
that's a good title. Yeah.
Having not read those, what made you sit down? What was the catalyst that made you say, I have these ideas. What I'm going to do, I'm going to set this time aside.
I'm glad you said set this time aside. So I lived, my wife and I, shortly after graduating college, we lived in Hoboken, New Jersey, before there was a waterfront. Hoboken's a great place now, but it was a little rougher then. And actually, On the Waterfront was shot there, and the old waterfront buildings were all decayed. Like there was just decaying, falling down brick buildings on a waterfront right across from Manhattan. And then, surprise, you know, suddenly developers realized just how valuable that and all that stuff's gone now, and now it's, you know, apartments and everything else. But she and I were living in Hoboken, and so finding the time, and well, actually, I'm going to change that. So finding the I forget, actually, James, I apologize. I was going down a different path.
No, you're fine.
I'm going to go back to finding the time. Oh, that's what it was. So another really talented fiction writer and screenwriter, John Sayles, lived in Hoboken at the time. I recall seeing him on the Red Apple bus, which was the cheap bus into Manhattan. There were more expensive ones, but like it was cheaper to ride the Red Apple, which was like this broken down school bus. And John and I, not that he's my friend, but I saw John Sayles taking the cheaper bus also. Smart man. But I cite that because he wrote somewhere about, which I thought of many times, that, you know, as a young husband, he needed to, provide for a family or not, but just, he needed to, you got to work, right?
Sure,
Like
100%.
Playwriting in particular is probably one of the least, perhaps poets have it harder, right? But playwriting, it's not a lucrative thing, and not that sales is a playwright to my knowledge. But he said that he would wake up at like 4:30 and write before he went to work at 8 or 9 in the morning, and he would get like 4 or 5 hours in before he started working.
Yeah.
And you're like, and I know you're working, but it's just like, so what I do is, I'm of a culture where I would work with producers who would start their days early. A lot of successful people are not blocked. They're working all the time, including right now, 24/7, all the time. Sure. On the weekend. Yeah. And, I would, from a producer I worked with for a very long time, start getting work texts with regularity every day around 6:15 in the morning. So like, I'm just used to starting my day very early. I have a somewhat longish commute into New York, and takes about maybe I would say an hour and a half on the train, and then 15 minutes either side. And I use the 15 minutes either side to think about things sort of, well, if I'm not working, okay, because sometimes I'm just working the whole time.
Fair enough, yeah.
Yeah. But when I'm not working and I can fit it in, I'll do writing. I'll think about what I might be writing. I'll get on the train. I'll show my ticket, my train pass, and I'll start writing, and then I'll pull into Grand Central. And, afterwards I'll think about, decompress a little bit. What do I want to do next? Maybe make a note or two, and then get to my desk and work, completely separating myself from the writing project. There are many paths to being a writer, or actually to getting a project done. There are many paths to that. But one that I've just seen over and over again, and there is no right way. I cannot say that enough. But a path that I've seen over and over again is show up and do the work, show up and do the work, show up and do the work. Some days you have good days at the office, in quotes. Some days you have bad days at the office, in quotes. But you're there and you're showing up and you're doing the work. And John Sayles, a man I don't know, but he would, as I understand it from his writing, that he would wake up, every day and get in a good, 3-4 hours, whatever it is, before his work day. Sure. So that's what I do. And my friends will say, who know that I do some plays here and there, will say, like, when do you find any time to do this? And I'm like, on my train ride. And they're like, well, what about at home? And I'm like, when I'm at home, I want to spend time with my wife. I want to spend time with my daughter. I have things I got to do. And I got to work when I get home too sometimes, So, I have all the excuses in the world. And maybe that's why I didn't write previously, because my job's also interesting. It's fulfilling and it's challenging. But I just immerse myself in my work and never really, prioritize the time for myself or for writing or what have you. Sure. But I do that now. And I exclusively write on the Metro North train to and from Grand Central. That is my writing office. That is the only place I write, is sitting next, often like this, shoulders scrunched, trying to get my leg. This is a good look, but that's how I do it. But it's like, is it comfortable? Is it quiet? No, it's not. But it's like the only time I get, and I make use of it.
Yeah, I think the marketing aspect of our conversation is going to have to wait, because this is a fascinating conversation. So you may have said it already. The catalyst. I want to know the catalyst that made you like, I'm going to start writing.
Well, I mean, James, I wish I had a good answer.
And then I want to know I want to know the catalyst, and I want to know what I'm going to use the phrase path to success. For somebody who jumped in 2022 and to have a reading at the Rhode, or to have, this audio play, like what was the path, and not only that, what you sat down to write. I can't imagine that you're like sitting down and what was it? Was the Mary Tyler Moore thing where the guy's at the typewriter, pulls out the page and throws it over the edge? I can't imagine you made that first draft and threw it out. I'm done. Let me submit it. Here we go. You know what I mean? So when you finished the first draft, what did you do after? And then at what point did you start sending it out? And what was I guess the process? I hate using that word because I feel like I use it in every episode, but you know what I mean? So what was the catalyst that made you start? And then once you wrote and finished one draft, what did you do after? And then how did you start sending it out?
So some of this is not going to be what anyone listening to this podcast is going to want to hear. But, so the first play I wrote was inspired by sitting on a ski lift, and it's called Uphill. And it is essentially a character and other characters that sit on the lift with this guy and, exchange, some of them are monologues. And that was the one that Smith and Kraus published in their best stage monologues book. Some of them are conversations, and then it does end up at a ski resort, ticket office, as well as an après ski bar.
I'm gonna throw something out at you real quick and totally interrupt and go on a different tangent.
Yeah.
How's that on the page? How's that stage? I want to know. Here we're not a movie. We're a play. So I want to know how a ski lift works on stage.
Horrible.
And how it looks on page.
On the page is horrible because I'm so perverse that I refuse to spell out how to do anything.
Well, you shouldn't.
I mean, Tennessee Williams is an amazing playwright. And,
fair enough.
You can say Kazan had a lot to do with that too, or what have you, in the productions. But, like his style, I wish I had it in front of me. But in Cat on a Hudson Roof, like some of his stage directions are the most beautiful writing I have ever read. And no one, unless they're reading, will never ever see this writing, because it's a stage direction. Anyway, I'm sort of more of the Shakespeare school of thought of character A enters.
They fight.
He exits. Fight. Yeah. So literally it's like and even more perverse, my characters aren't even named. Okay, so I have A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I literally have an alphabet of characters in this one play, Uphill, the ski play, where everyone's doubling. And the notion is that people are similar and that you meet the same people. And so the names don't really matter, but the characters do. Yeah. And, and there's literally an alphabet, and then a doubling. It's just confusing. So when you read it, it looks like algebra. I mean, sincerely. Sure. And so it says A and B sit on the ski lift. That's it. It doesn't even say anything.
Great.
Scene 1, A and B sit on a ski lift.
Phenomenal. I love it.
The problem though is, how did I get that produced? Right? And the play and your point is excellent, James. No one wants to hear an obscure card game being played for literally 20 seconds.
Well, it came and that's the thing that I've learned doing this podcast that I didn't realize. I'm ignorant to this. Is that what I put on the page as far as set and all that goodness is not my job.
Oh, I know. I agree.
I didn't know that. Because again, I've read Williams. I've read.
They were very prescriptive.
Well, and again, the other thing that I learned from doing this podcast as well is that stage directions were apparently from the stage manager. They wrote them in from the production.
There's a difference between a written stage
I didn't know. I was like, I got to write stage left. I got to move stage right. I got to take, and that's when I talked to the young playwrights and stuff like that. I'm like, I don't think you understand that when you say takes a drink is unnecessary. It just it'll happen unless it's particularly motivated by something, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. But I will say, I would not want Cat on a Hudson Roof to not have those passages.
100%.
Amazing. So, it's right to do that. I choose not to. But
again, 100% because, and I don't know if I agree with it, but I had a professor in college as far as playwriting goes. It was some plays are meant to be read and not performed. Now, I don't know necessarily if I believe in that because I think it might have been a Williams play. It was the moonlight burst through the through the doorway in shards of glass or something like that. It's well, how do you stage that? But
I'm never going to argue with Tennessee Williams.
Exactly, but at the same time. That's not our job.
Yeah. but sincerely, James, I believe that's just as valid as what I'm doing. But what I'm doing is I'm giving the reader nothing. You know what I mean? I'm literally giving them nothing to grab onto and get situated and be drawn into the story. So I would never recommend to someone who once they get their work on, to be like, hey, I'm going to make it hard for you to even read this, let alone, accept it and say, hey, I want to do it, so.
But I appreciate it, because at the same time, I remember I was at Sierra College in Sacramento, and we were assigned scenes, and it was only dialogue. There was no, and it was just, you interpret it however you did. And I think there was a scene we kind of interpreted it as a scene from Mice and Men. Yeah. There was nothing that interpreted that way, but it's like, that's how I kind of envision it. It's like, this is what it is. So I guess I can appreciate your point of view and like giving little. I don't know.
Well, because I'm just a spark. Like, I'm not going to be prescriptive. I'm trying to do an event. And so like, you're going to bring, I do hesitate to talk too much more about it, because like, we're never going to get through any of your questions, but I didn't give this theater much to go on. And the director called me and he said, this woman, loves your play. I'm having some trouble with it, though. This is, again, my second time of having trouble with the director. He goes, you've literally written nothing, and I go, yeah, I don't know. Like, what do you want to do? Like, how do you want to do a ski lift? And he goes, I don't ski, and it's so anyway, to jump to the end, he did like, and this is like, this Uphill was first done at an amateur theater, and he had a movie screen behind a ski lift that they built.
There you go.
And the movie screen, I don't know where he found the footage, but it was of ski lifts going by. Like, and the characters sat, it was just like, I was like, wow, I never would have thought of that. That's like, and who would ever think, like, I'm going to require my play has a giant movie screen and you got to build a ski lift. I'm thinking someone's going to sit on a picnic bench and pretend it's a ski lift, but it had a bar. The bar came up and down. You could see the hill behind you, snow covered it was amazing. And that all came from his initial, like, what the hell is this? And I'm like, I don't know. You tell me. He also, he goes, Scott, or Cameron, Scott, I got this idea. I'm like, what's that? And he goes, we're going to play Pop Goes the Weasel as a thematic transitional music cue between scenes. And it's got like, I don't know, 12 scenes or something in it. And I go, oh, wow, that sounds horrible. And he goes, okay, well, it doesn't have to be that. And then, I sat with it and I wrote him immediately. And I'm like, it sounds great. Actually, like, this is yours. It's not mine. Like, he's the director. He's got, and he was coming on to something and, getting to something. And who am I to say, anyway, the short of it is,
Playwright, you have a lot to say.
Well, but I mean, I did initially say, like, let's not do that. Well, he's like, okay, fine. But then I sat there and I thought, whose play is this? And it's like, the script is mine, but the play's not mine. The play is in the hands of the actor, the director, and the audience, and the venue.
God, who was it?
And no, but and they didn't change a single word.
No, you're right.
Did it in a way that I didn't envision, and I loved it.
No, the thing is you just touched on something that another playwright said, that once it's out of my hands, it's not my play anymore. It's always your play, don't get me wrong, but you're saying the same thing, and it's like, I guess it's the vision, like somebody gets it, and there's a vision there.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, theater's a collaborative art, and like, you're going to tell, like, there are theater directors, I don't have to name them, that are absolutely amazing. Like, I mean, I'm not going to name them, but I'm just like, of course, now this Joe Montello, he did a play called Grey House, and I just thought, I mean, it wasn't, and this is not disparaging to the writer, because I mean, he was smart, but like, what Montello did with Grey House was just amazing. Oh, and actually, I told you, so you and I were trying to figure out when we would talk. And I said, hey, I'm going to this play, Trophy Boys, tonight.
Oh, that's right. Let's touch on that, because that's a fascinating thing that our listeners should know.
But I went to Trophy Boys because I wanted to see what Danya Tamor was going to do with it. It was a play I didn't even know. It's a new play.
Okay.
But I went there because I'm like, oh, it's exciting. Danya Tamor is doing a new play. Sure. I want to see what she's doing. And theater, like, and that's not just, I'm not familiar with the playwright. If I, now I will want to see this playwright's next play, but at the time I was familiar with her work on The Outsiders, a play called Jonah, and the wonderful work she did on John Proctor is a villain, which is up for a Tony this year, Tonys this year. But I was just excited to see what she brought to it. So to me, like, theater is never about like, oh, I want to see. Actually, there's a revival right now of Glengarry Glen Ross on Broadway, which I think is fantastic. People would argue with me, like, you know, the Roma characters maybe not done. That Cullen Kirkin isn't doing, isn't doing service to the character. But to me, like, you do a revival because you're bringing something new. Otherwise, I will just watch a videotape of an earlier production, or, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not, you know. So when I go to the theater, I'm not just going like, oh, I want to see Death of a Salesman as I saw it every time, you know, before, you know, like.
Sure.
There are so many reasons to go to the theater, and it's not just the script.
Well, you know, let me go on a little tangent. Like, what did you? I don't know if you watched. Did you happen to watch? Hang on. John Faramish Boca.
No.
Okay. So he does. Gosh darn it. What do you call them? Not revivals. They're not revivals. They're not interpretations. Gosh darn it. This is embarrassing. Adaptations.
Okay, sure.
So he's right now in LA, he's doing an adaptation of Lear.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a father. It's modernized. It's a father who's going through dementia, who's a former actor. So all of his dialogue is Lear. 70% of his dialogue is Lear, and his children are, you know, all the characters in Lear, but modernized.
Right.
So kind of along the lines of what you're saying, it's like, yes, absolutely. So you don't want to see the same thing.
I mean, sometimes you do. Like, I saw there was a fabulous
100%.
I worked on it, and I'm going to get the year wrong. I'm going to say it's like 2010 or something, but there was a Salesman with Philip Seymour Hoffman, and directed by Mike Nichols. And it was done very true to how you would have seen it debuted in the 40s.
Sure.
It was thrilling to like, the sound cues were used from the ones from the 40s. There was like a real, like, hey, I want to, and not in a museum piece kind of way, but I want to be true to like what this was like in the 40s and the excitement that it had in the 40s. 100%. And so that requires, you know, some oomph that you bring to it. But it was like, and it was, you know, just like it was exceptional. It was absolutely fantastic. So again, there's no one answer for any of this.
No, 100%. And on that note, I do this thing called Play Noir. So you should submit. It's kind of like the 40s style of film noir. I think you'd like it.
I might take you up on it.
You should.
I warn you, the stage directions will be lacking.
So those of you that don't know, that the whole thing that this came about with Cameron and I is that he submitted to Play Noir and his background was intriguing. So I had to have him on the podcast. So yeah.
Now we're fast friends. We even started arguing together, and now I've challenged you to attend the theater with me. I mean, look what's happening. So this relationship is accelerating at a phenomenal pace.
Exactly. And you have an event tonight, if I'm not mistaken.
No, actually, I don't. Well, I do. And this is an event that everyone should
that's right.
Anyone who got an hour into this podcast will probably want to do this with me, and that is to tune in to CNN. Again, this is going to come out after the fact, but CNN, the cable news network, is for free live streaming the Good Night and Good Luck play that George Clooney is currently starring in, and it will be tonight's performance at 7 p.m. on stage on Broadway at the Winter Garden will be live streamed to anyone who goes to the CNN website, goes to the CNN cable channel, and they will be able to watch a Broadway show, which is commanding a very, very high ticket price. And you said
that last night. How much is that? How much is that price?
I don't, you know, I'm just saying it.
I thought you said $850 last night. I'm just saying.
I'm in the business of marketing theater, and that's not the story to me. You know, story is that it is a tight ticket, and there are people that are willing to pay a lot to scalpers and otherwise to see it because there's very few seats.
Sure.
But the producers and the artists, I don't know, you know, who exactly, but the producers, the artists are sharing it with the globe for free. Despite the ticket prices that are being charged in Manhattan. So now that we're in the marketing part of this, theater in Manhattan is not about high ticket prices. I cannot stress that enough. But I'm just saying this one particular event is of such a, people want to see George Clooney on stage and they're intrigued by all of it. Anyway, it is on starting about half an hour. So the good news is for everybody, this can't go on longer than half an hour. There's a little pre-show, but I have that. And then I will be at the Tony Awards this Sunday, which will be broadcast live on, on CBS television. And I will be there. I have a couple horses in the race. And I will be there cheering my horses on and all my friends.
Well, if you happen to see Ben, give him my regards.
Oh my gosh, yes. No one else will know what we're talking about.
Oh, you
may know a few Broadway types yourself.
Well, I got, I directed Ben when he was in high school, and then I actually had the pleasure of Itamar Moses.
We have to say Ben Platt, don't we? We have to.
Well, I guess we should say Ben Platt. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I just blew it. I just, Okay.
No, not at all. And then Itamar Moses was a Tony Award winner for his Fievel, American Story. He did an episode with us here, so
I am going to listen to that one.
Yeah, if you
for sure,
it's interesting. It's interesting
for a reason of my own. I'm going to listen to that one.
I appreciate it. I'm going to ask the question. You've listened to the episodes before. I'm going to go through these questions. You already probably know them. I already know the answer to the first one.
Well, to be fair, one of them I listened to was Nikki Silver's, which was fabulous, and I think he probably refused to follow any of your prescriptive notions of how the podcast should have gone.
I will tell you anything. I will tell, actually not you. You've listened to it already. I will tell listeners. That's an episode. Forget about playwriting. Just watch that episode just because he is
he's a force in
entertainment. He's an entertaining personality. I love that. It was 2:30 my time, 10:30 his time.
Yeah, 2:30 in the morning.
Yes. Yeah. And we didn't wrap up until 4:30 in the morning. And I put on a damn suit for that man because it just felt
like really good, by the way.
I felt like I had to, but it's entertaining to the max. Like, forget the playwriting aspect. It's just, he's so charming and
he is.
Yeah.
It's no surprise that he writes great, really rich, entertaining plays. I mean, because he is. That's just who he is.
100%.
I mean, I don't know him, but I mean, just from watching your podcast, I feel like I kind of do now.
He had some choice words for me. I got his age wrong once, and I can't remember if he called me something or used the F word towards me. I don't remember what it was, but it was well deserved. I know the answer to this already, but let's ask it anyways. Where can people find your work?
They can't.
Wait.
I take it back. They can't find me. If they want to perform it, they can't find a way to do that. But they can, if you do Google searches of Cameron Scott and plays and stuff, they start linking to each other. And there's I have a couple audio plays. There's a video that's out of one of them. So you'll be able to find stuff.
Hang on here. Let me go back.
You did that already. We're unable to find.
Let me go back to this real quick.
Yeah.
An excerpt from his play Uphill, which was published in the Best Men's Stage Monologues 2023 by Smith and Kraus.
Yes.
There you go.
That is true.
Okay. My challenge to you is to get the rest of your work up there.
The works themselves you can find. And then actually one of them is because like I said, I'm new to this. I don't have a ton of things floating out there. I have some, and some of them have been performed and are gone, like there's no recording of them.
Sure.
But one of them, I decided to go down. I have I referenced one of my close friends. He's in the horror. He would, for like $800, he would create these fantastic horror films. And he actually got a deal with Lionsgate to distribute when it was a Killer Clown. I mean, he's going to kill me for not remembering the titles. He's my best friend. But so I was like, hey, best friend. I used his name, but hey, best friend, we should write together since I'm writing now. And you've been writing since I've known you. When you were in high school, you were writing amazing stuff, by the way. And that's the other thing too, is like, you never, like, going through life, like a lot of these artists, you see them paired with friends from high school or other, like, the crowds you run with, there's a lot of talent all around us. I mean,
100%.
And this man is more talented than I. So I said to him, we should write like a Twilight Zone, like horror thing. Cause that's like your expertise. You know, you're known for it. You have a reputation. And he said, yeah, okay. And then eventually he's like, I can't do this. You know, like I don't have time for you. And at that point I'd already like mapped something out. So one of the plays that you can find is called West PalmReaders. Oh yeah. As in like West Palm Beach or Palm Readers combined together. And that just plays like entirely different than any play we've been talking about. It's a Twilight Zone episode. It's got screams in it. It's got it's very literal. It's an audio only play.
Nice.
Well, okay, I'm not going to bore. But anyway, I have like maybe some plans for it in other ways too.
Good.
But it's an audio only play. I don't think it'll give you a real. So Google that one, listen to it, and then listen to this thing that James hates already, not having heard it, called That Day Is Coming, Every Day Is Coming. But you'll listen to these two things. You'll listen to the two things, and you'll be like, the same person didn't write these. You know, they could not be more different. One is a TV show, and the other is like art rock. You know what I mean? They're just like, they're not the same thing.
That's awesome. What are you working on right now?
So I'm working on an adaptation of one of my things that I've already done, that a producer. So I wrote an audio piece that I want to try to put on the stage, and maybe that'll happen. And that version of on the stage, someone else says, I like that version to go back to audio. And I'm like, but wait, I took the idea and I put it over here and you want to go back? And I'm like, yeah. But so initially I always go, that's bad. You know, like that was always my first reaction and everything. And then I think on it, and you already know, James, that I will come back with a yes. So then I thought, like, oh yeah, wait, no, she's right. And then I started, and now I'm working on that. And I know I got a bunch of other things that, you know, that I have in the typewriter that I do in between station stops.
Sure.
You know, but that's the thing that I'm like, if you ask me what I'm doing, it's probably up on my desktop because I'm going through the final polish before I send it to her. And she's going to do that this October.
Where can people find your work? We already discussed that. And then lastly, are you on the socials?
No.
Good for you.
I mean, I'm on the socials for work. Basically.
So the work socials, you kind of control that, but you're not. It's not under camera.
Yeah, as far as marketing goes, you can't.
Sure.
I mean, it's almost impossible to market without using socials.
Fair enough. Yeah. We're gonna have to do this again.
Well, because I didn't answer.
We didn't even touch on marketing, which was the original conversation that you and I had.
I thought the original conversation was that I'm old and I started writing when I was.
We're old.
Oh, so speaking of noir, so my very good friend in the horror field told me, he goes, what are you doing? He goes, like, can we do X and Y? And I'm like, no, I'm doing this interview. And he goes, oh, did you know that the Philip Marlowe character didn't even happen until he was 51 years old?
Really?
Yeah. And you're the noir guy. And I didn't know that. I mean, I just like, so that's
over here.
Yeah, I was like Chandler wrote. So Chandler was like an oil exec or something, like a businessman, and not an author. And then I know this is like me going through what my friend just told me. So this is me imparting misinformation. This is the part of the program that I promised everyone. But something to the effect of he was like an oil executive and fell out of favor at his company, and then thought, well, I'll start writing. And then literally at 51 wrote The Big Sleep. And it's like, you got to be kidding me.
God bless him.
So that's inspiring. Cameron Scott is not inspiring. He is.
I'm going to beg to differ, my friend. I'm going to beg to differ because there's a great story that came out of this interview, and so it's just a testament that it's not too late. Like we talked about yesterday, it's not too late. You know, I mean, I should sit down and write myself, but I don't. I should.
James, like, just think of John Sayles. I mean, like, just, and Nikki Silver, actually, to talk about him, Nikki said, I don't write every day. I had a friend who said, if you don't write every day, you're not a writer. And I said to him, fuck you. That was his quote, I believe, right? Because I listened to it maybe 2 or 3 days ago.
Yeah.
And there is no one path. Nikki Silver doesn't write every day, but when he does, it's damn good, right?
And you don't have to. It helps if you do, but it's not a necessity. Again, Stephen Pressfield, The Art of War. It's like it's resistance. You'll do everything but right. Yeah. And that's where we're at. I need to sit down. On that note, I'm just out of curiosity, do you have do you have places do you have escapes?
What kind?
Well, like I will go right in. So as far as California goes, I will go to Cambria. I'll go to Monterey. I'll go to Solvang. Those are like those are my escapes where I'll go right. Like I got to get away for a weekend, and this is where I'm going to go. Do you have those? Or do you just
everything we've talked about. So like that stupid long sheet of paper, right?
Yeah.
That was all written on Metro North, and that is a commuter.
Oh, that's right. Your escape was the fucking train. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's my office. I have not written a single word not on Metro North. So that might speak. You might listen to some of the stuff and go, "Hey, it sounds like he was on a train when he wrote this, commuting into the city." You know, everything I've written has been. Well, I mean, everything I've written, post COVID, has been on the train.
Well, there we go.
Yeah. So just, hey, look, make it happen. Just do it, however you can, and that's the free time I get is my commute. That's it.
100%. That's how we do it. Well, Cameron Scott, thank you for coming on to this episode of Playwright Spotlight.
Thank you, Mr. Eldon.
Appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Playwright Spotlight. Before we, what am I talking about? We're not at the beginning, we're at the end. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Playwright Spotlight. As a reminder, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and share the show with a friend. If you're listening, this is on your favorite podcast platform. Subscribe to the channel, leave a 5-star review. And in the meantime, until we see each other again, keep writing, even if it's on a train.